Welcome to our show. We're going with Beyond the Headlines, perhaps Behind the Headlines. We're getting closer to a name. Still looking for the naming rights to be granted, though. So if you're watching, pony up. Today is getaway day for Blair Kerkhoff. Our other partner on the show, Sam, is already bound for Surprise. Actually, is in Surprise. And Blair, you head out there today. But before you go, we'll keep you attached to the dreary Midwest and the 5 or 8 degrees cold, and think a little bit about the Sunflower Showdown, if that's what we're still calling it tonight.
It is. It's not the sexiest name for a rivalry, the Sunflower Showdown, but it is what it is, and they play tonight. And I hope to get to Phoenix in time to at least watch part of that game. It's a big game for Kansas, very big game for Kansas. The way the Iowa State has played recently, and where the Big 12 standing is right now.
Well, that's an interesting thing because it has become that still for Kansas, and Bill Self talked to our Rustin Dodd about that, and other reporters, of course, covering Kansas in the last day or so. And is that a challenge for Kansas? K-State's lost 7 of 8. It's a rivalry game. Does KU lose any luster or any just fire going there, or they're so conscious of the title race now that doesn't matter?
Right. Well, I don't think they lose any enthusiasm about playing in Manhattan. For one thing, it'll be the best atmosphere that for a K-State home game this year, and really every year. It is the best atmosphere for a Wildcats home game. They do get up, no matter how the season has unfolded for K-State. They will be the place will be packed. It'll be juiced. It'll be a really good atmosphere, and I think K-State will play better in this game tonight than it has played in the previous 2. They were dreadful last week in their Texas trip at Baylor and at TCU. That TCU game was just awful. Still having issues with team chemistry. Marcus Foster. Things aren't going well for Kansas State. I do expect them to play hard tonight. If not great, I expect them to play hard.
I'm trying to figure out what the disconnect is at K-State, because now we're a few years into Bruce Weber's reign. I like Bruce. I think he's a good coach. I like how he relates to people, but I do find myself wondering if there's some place where he's not reaching his players, because they don't seem really to be responding to him that well.
No, they all season haven't been on the same page for whatever reason, especially Marcus Foster, the best player. The guy who came into the year coming off an all-conference type season last year, and we expected so many big things from him. It just hasn't happened. He's had some great games. I remember out in Hawaii, he had the great game against Arizona, and he's had big game-winning shots against Oklahoma twice. They've swept Oklahoma this year. That's amazing. In fact, if Oklahoma doesn't win the Big 12, it's because they got swept by K-State of all things. But Bruce Weber and Marcus Foster and a couple others just have not been on the same page all year. It's wrecked the season, basically. They've got a streak of 5 straight years in the NCAA tournament on the line this year. Unless they win the conference tournament, that streak's going to end.
Yeah, and a team we know is not going to go to the NCAA tournament unless we get the miracle of all miracles, seeing Missouri win the SEC tournament. But they're now at a point, and obviously you could see this coming, but of historic proportions of a losing streak here, and really sort of no end in sight. I'm not sure if I expect them to win another game. But you wrote a column last week about looking at some of the history of coaches that have pretty notable careers, including Bill Self and Fred Hoiberg, and going through those early stages. Now, there's some parallels to this, but maybe some things that aren't the same. This isn't Kim's first coaching job like it was for Bill and Fred, but I wonder what you saw in those experiences for them that reminded you of what Kim's going through now.
Well, you're right. They're not similar, only in that they had double-digit loss streaks in those years. And Bill, of course, was at Self was at Oral Roberts, a small Division I independent at the time. Still, a 15-game losing streak to end the season for him that year. Fred Hoiberg lost 10 in a row in his first year at Iowa State, first year of him as a head coach. You know, obviously, all the situations are a little bit different, but the fact is they all went through a lousy first year, a lousy first year, as Kim is doing at Mizzou. I think the thing that I take from it is they were so determined to improve immediately. And Fred Hoiberg's team was in the NCAA tournament the next year, and Self's team went from a 15-game losing streak to, in his 3rd and 4th year, about a 14-game winning streak, some long winning streak, and won 21 games in his 4th year at Oral Roberts, which got him the Tulsa job. You know, it's Basically, what it means is there is success on the other side. If you stick with it, if you trust the guy that you've got, which Iowa State and Oral Roberts did in those years, if you trust the guy that you got, good things can happen.
And one last thought on that, and I can't quite remember this, but I think this is true. I think in each of those cases, they started to get a little traction just at the end of that year. Did they not win 2 out of 3 maybe at the end, or just?
Iowa State did.
Iowa State
Iowa
did.
State did.
Bill's team did.
Right. Iowa State won 2 out of 3 regular season
Okay.
games to end the year, and that was a nice boost going into the following season.
Well, and again, Missouri's season hasn't worked out the way anybody would like it to, but maybe for the sake of future generations here, that they can win a couple, just start getting some flow going forward. And that's about all the time we have now for today. Without Sam Mellinger, unfortunately, but with Blair Kerkhoff, I'm Vahe Gregorian. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we will be back soon.